Alright, so just a quick disclaimer before I get into the actual podcast. I do want to start by saying that Nicki Minaj, or at least I think Nicki Minaj, is an extremely talented artist, and I don't think she makes inherently bad music by any means. But in my opinion, since her first album came out, her music has become less and less entertaining for me, to the point where I think that a bunch of less technically skilled rappers have surpassed her in terms of enjoyability, in terms of the songs that she's putting out compared to the songs that they're putting out. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, welcome to the first edition of the Hate Train, and today we'll be discussing Nicki Minaj. And when I say Hate Train, I do also want to clarify, obviously I don't hate her or her music, but these episodes are going to be more, I guess, joking, not as lightly. It's going to be me really kind of getting into, like, why I dislike a lot of the things that artists do, and I'll do this every once in a while. I don't think I have a lot of artists that I can really talk about, at least at this point, unless I really think about it. But I'm very vocal about how much Nicki Minaj's new music just kind of irritates me. So I figured might as well just put it on record and clear some things up, and also kind of revisit some of her music just to make sure that I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt that maybe her music just didn't sound right at first. And if I listen to it, if I let it breathe a little bit, then maybe it's better. And as we'll get into, that kind of applies in a couple places, but the vast majority of her music that I thought was bad in the first place is still bad now. But let's start off. So, alright, so Nicki Minaj. Trinity born, raised in Queens, pink wig. You guys already know what's going on. The self-proclaimed, queen of rap. In my opinion, easily the worst third of Young Money. Just like easily the worst third of Young Money. My God, if you don't know who Young Money is, it's just the little brother extension of Cash Money. So, and it's just a rap group that it's made by Lil Wayne, so it contains him, Drake, and then Nicki Minaj. And it was formed way back in the day. I'm pretty sure it was just formed in 2010. Yeah, and in my opinion, she's the KC proclaimed least entertaining female rap artist out right now. That is, of course, a working title, and of course, it is subject to change at any point in time. But as of now, we're just going to keep it there. So it's into that in my disclaimer. My main beef with Nicki Minaj is really just the shift that her musical focus took throughout her career between 2010 and now. So we have a good decade of music to talk about, which is good because it's not like I'm talking about an artist that has been in the game for like 3-4 years and has 2 projects out. That being said, though, she's been out for a decade and she has 4 albums out, like 4 like studio albums. Technically 4.5, but I'm going to only talk about 4. And if you're thinking, wait, Nicki Minaj has 4 albums out? Yeah, me too. I kind of forget. Okay, so the way that I'll go through this chronologically, she has a great album to start. She has an album that you definitely forgot exists. Definitely forgot that her second album exists, which we'll talk about. A third album, which is pretty good, which is actually pretty good. And then pretty good to decent. And then an absolutely just terrible album in 2018. But the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to kind of go through, give it like I'm not going to call it brief because I have a lot of notes on a lot of stuff with her, but I'm going to go through as efficiently as I can throughout her entire music career, starting out in 2010. Yes, 2010 is when Super Bass came out, people. 2010. That's how old you are, right? It's been 10 years since that fucking song came out. Anyway, so I'm going to start out in 2010 when she first started making, I'll call it mainstream music. So I'm going to ignore her mixtapes for anyone for like the one person or like the half person that is saying like, well, why aren't you going to talk about her mixtapes? Her mixtapes are important. They're not for this point. For the sake of this discussion, they're not going to be important because who cares? Who cares? So we're going to start in 2010. And the big reason that I'm ignoring the mixtapes and that I'm going straight to 2010 is because this was the first time I heard Nicki Minaj, and that's definitely the first time the vast majority of people who know about Nicki Minaj have heard Nicki Minaj. And the first time I heard her was actually it wasn't her own song, it was on Trey Songz' song Bottoms Up. And if that doesn't hit a very dark place in your mind for anyone who is like 22 or around 20, like young 20s, like that is just hitting a weird part of your brain that you definitely forgot about. Excuse me. Yeah, that was the first time I heard her. And of course, if you listen to my past few podcasts, I wasn't really listening to music in depth at this point. Not super well. So, I mean, it's just I saw her name on the feature list. I just liked the song. I didn't think anything of it. I really didn't even listen to Trey Songz' music, like, in general. But, I like the song. So I was like, I like the song. That's it. I'm not going to look into Nicki Minaj at all. I'm not going to look into Trey Songz at all. Whatever. Nicki Minaj. She was also, this year in 2010, she was also featured on a lot of songs with other artists, such as Rihanna, Ludacris, which is My Chick. Ludacris is My Chick Bad, which I actually kind of like that song. I kind of like that song a good bit. I don't think it aged that well, but I think it's a fun song. It's just stupid. She's also there with Usher, and then obviously she has her insanely famous Kanye West feature, which I will talk about in a second. But before that, I would like to say that one notable thing about all of these features, and the ones I did mention that are from this year, is that they're all really they all really do a good job of displaying what makes Nicki Minaj as an artist so interesting, especially for 2010. So, like, obviously in 2010, Nicki Minaj is not a household name yet by any means. So her features have to be really important, and they have to be really good at kind of showing the general public what she can do. And you do that, obviously artists do that by getting these features on very established musicians that already have a fan base, that already have some sort of like support system behind them and listenership, and saying, hey, this is me, let me show you what I can do. And I think all these features do an insanely good job of doing that. And obviously the most important one of all those is her verse on Kanye West's Monster, which is on his album My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which, I'll mention all the damn time, and everyone who ever talks about Kanye West mentions My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. But oddly enough, or I shouldn't say oddly enough, but funnily enough, 10 years later, people still say that her verse on this song, on this album, is one of the greatest verses on this album, still, like a decade later. Which is crazy because, to the whole world, she's new. Like, who is this Nicki Minaj girl, And she comes on this song and she just tears it to shreds. Like, it is an absurdly good verse. There's a little story about how she wrote a verse for the song. Kanye saw it, or she performed it, and Kanye saw it and then said, yo, like, I know you're better than this. Rewrite this shit. And so she did that, like, multiple times until she finally got to the version that everyone all knows and loves at this point. And really, it's hard to say where she would be. I'm sure she would still be doing great now, but it's hard to see it's hard to like really think about where she would be right now if she didn't have the kind of acclaim that she had when she released that verse on that song. Because that was as soon as she put that song on, as soon as she like tore apart that verse on that song, on that album, which I will say, like, which is actually important to note, that song Monster has some of the biggest names in music on that song. Give me a quick second, Jesus. Like, Monster is featuring, you're going to hear it in the background, I'm going to cover it so I don't get copyright striked, but it has Jay-Z on this song, Rick Ross, and Bon Iver, and then obviously Kanye West. And then somehow Nicki Minaj escaped that that lineup with the greatest verse by far. Tore it up. And yeah, like, to this day, this is regarded as her best verse ever. Like, ever. Across all of her music, across all of her features, across her mixtapes, everything. It is relatively well regarded, it's well said throughout, like, the music community that this is her best verse ever. Like, ever. She hasn't even come close. You could argue that she's come close, but I don't think there are parts of this. So if you're not familiar with the verse, or you need a refresher, definitely go listen to it and see how it holds up, especially now, 10 years later. And you'll hear, actually don't click off this podcast yet. Wait until I'm done explaining what my issue is with Nicki Minaj, and then go back and listen to it, and you'll understand even more what my gripe is with her. But we'll save that. Also in 2010, she released her first album, which I didn't even realize is on November 19th, 2010, which is a day before my birthday. I didn't even notice. Because, again, I wasn't listening to music in depth at the time, so I wasn't necessarily just, like, on iTunes, because Spotify and Apple Music weren't a thing back then. I wasn't necessarily on iTunes, just clicking buy on midnight. But, yeah, first album came out in 2010, November 19th, Pink Friday. And also keep in mind, for all these albums I'm going to be talking about, I'm obviously going to be talking about the deluxe versions just because they contain the full collection of songs. So just assume every time I mention an album, it's the deluxe version. Okay, so that being said, moving into Pink Friday. Pink Friday, if you know me, is one of... I don't want to necessarily say it's one of my favorite albums, but I think it's one of the more... It's one of the better albums I've listened to, and I think, considering it's 10 years old, I think it's held up insanely well. And it really is, to me, a defining album in terms of Nicki Minaj. And if it were her only album, I think she would be one of my favorite artists. Really. But the reason for that is it has this common theme, Pink Friday, and you can even tell by the title, right? So just the title itself, I mean, Pink Friday, it sounds, I don't want to say dreamy, because that's not necessarily the right word, or it's exactly the right thing I want to say, but it's like playful. It's a playful title, so it's going to be a playful, you're walking into it, you're like, all right, this is going to be a relatively playful album, right? It's going to sound very fun, very fluttery, very upbeat, and that's exactly what it sounds like. Songs like Your Love, Super Bass, which damn near every person who has ears has heard in their life, especially, again, if you're around my age. This is like the definition of a middle school dance music song, or middle school dance song. Jesus, it is a definition of it. I mean, like Blazin'. I also have under here Moment for Life, which I love. I still love that song. It's one of my favorite songs today. Still, Check It Out with will.i.am. Those would really qualify, and they stick to this common theme of like this fun, like not taking myself too serious kind of tone that she has all over the album. But then she also does a real good job of, I think it's worth noting that the first song, the intro of the album, is called I'm the Best, right? And keep in mind, this is her debut album. And I don't know if she made this song, recorded this song after her Monsterverse came out and like popped off and everything, got all this acclaim. But listen, if it wasn't, like, that's a bold thing to, like, I mean, just off title alone, and, like, the content of the song is obviously very, like, I'm here, bitch, like, I'm trying to, like, I'm the best rapper in the game right now, all that kind of shit that rappers say all the time, but no one really kind of has the audacity to just put it on their first album with very little recognition beforehand, with the exception of a few verses here and there. No one puts it on their album, and definitely not that many people put it as the first song on it. But it's very good. It sets the tone, and it's really like, off rip, you're like listening to this shit, and you're like, all right, so I see what she's trying to do here. Like, she's trying to be the best. She's going to perform. And, I put it under, like, the braggadocious category of rap. Like, like, look at how good I am. Look how much money I have. It doesn't really, the money isn't really a part of it, because I mean, granted, she was definitely getting paid at this point, but nothing crazy to what it is, nothing compared to what it is now. But I say that to say that the album itself is very, like, it's a good debut album. It's probably one of my favorite debut albums. I wouldn't say it's one of the best debut albums ever. I'm sure there are much better ones, but to me personally, I would put up there as one of my favorite debut albums from an artist, just because I think it does an insanely good job of showing you who the artist of Nicki Minaj is and what makes her special as an artist. As an entire album, the album itself is like an hour, like maybe 20 minutes long or something like that. Like, just stupidly long, especially for the time, because I mean, like, these bloated albums are more common now, but those albums now contain a lot more filler and don't really serve any purpose, but every song on this album serves a purpose, and I think that's a really awesome thing that this album has going for it that her other albums don't. And again, I'll get to that in due time. And then it also has this weird, well, not weird, but it also has this very strong grimy element to it, where it's just kind of like, like if you hear Nicki Minaj now, she has some of her verses, they sound really grimy, they sound really like in your face, they sound really like, like gritty, and it's not like, there aren't a lot of songs on here that are like that, but there are some, and I think that was very smart, and I think that was a very good decision, because it really, like, it sounds good, obviously. The song I have on here that really references this kind of grimy tone is Did It On 'Em, which is, I mean, if you can remember what I'm talking about, if you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely go check it out. It's, it's grimy, and at the time, I don't think that was really exactly the route that Nicki Minaj wanted to go on to, or at least from the entire sound of the whole of the other songs on the album. It's not fun. Like, it's not a fun song. It's very, like, it's grimy, but it's very nice to hear as it's juxtaposed between these, like, songs that are like fun and, like upbeat and, like, anthems and all this stuff. Like, you can put on the car, you can put on like your pregame playlist to just get hyped up before, like, a big game or whatever. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, it moving into it, like, it has an awesome mix of this kind of stuff. Like, the mixing is great, or the mix of songs is great. Like, there are rap tracks, or like rappy rap tracks on it. There's very few, but there are some R&B songs, like, of her, like, singing slower songs, like rap ballads, if you will. And again, keep track of that. So there are very few R&B songs in this one. A good amount of rapping tracks, a good amount of pop songs, very solid amount of pop songs. If I were to just I listened to it, again, I listened to all these albums before recording this, just to, like, make sure I didn't miss anything and that I don't misrepresent my opinions on them. But I would say that the number of rap tracks is about equal, or at least similar to the number of pop songs on here, like pop rap songs on here. And there are also a few anthems. So, like, I would consider Fly an anthem. I would consider, let's see. I would consider Fly is probably the biggest anthem I could put out there. I think Blazin' would also kind of qualify as like an anthem. That song has Kanye West in it, but regardless. And speaking of Kanye West, so many other features that were on this album. Again, so keep in mind, this is a debut album. These features are massive. Like, the amount of, like, money that they had, the amount of, like, belief that they had in this girl at this time must have been insane, because this album has, I'm not sure if you remember, but it has Eminem on it, Rihanna on it. Keep in mind, this is, like, Eminem before, like, all his, like, relative fall off. This is, like, prime Rihanna. This is, like, the beginning. This is slightly before prime Drake. This is, like, prime underground. Like, this is, like, prime slightly before mainstream Drake. This is will.i.am. I mean, Kanye West in his prime. Natasha Bedingfield, who I'm not too familiar with as an entire artist, but, I'm sure she had good amount of acclaim, and a lot of weight in the pop sphere. And then Lil Wayne, obviously. Lil Wayne signing, so Lil Wayne's all over every project she does. But, I mean, those are not small names by any extent of the imagination. And all of them kind of pull their weight. I actually completely forgot Eminem was on this album. He's on, like, the second song. But, like, they all pull their weight. They all do have really insane features. And they were just it was all well made. I don't know what to say. They were all very well pulled. They were very well placed. And I also had that easily, this is her album with the most new sounds in terms of, like, female rap, in terms of widespread appeal, and in terms of replay value. I also do want to say that a lot of the songs on here, and especially her verse with Kanye West's Monster, her vocal inflections, like the way that she changes her voice to go into, like, these different characters, she does it a lot here, and it's something that I really love about her, and it's something that I'll get into it more, but it's something that I wish she did more in her newer songs, which she doesn't anymore. It was very awesome to hear. It was very interesting, and no one was really doing it that much, kind of going to different personas during like an actual, like, just a single verse. That's important to note also as we go into later albums. But moving on to 2010, 2011, she had obviously her album was doing insanely well. Her name was out there now, and this is still She at this point she's star status, right? Like she's a name. She's only one album in, and she's a female rapper, right? So she shoots straight to stardom. She's popular, you know what I mean? Like she'll get you clicks on whatever song you want. So, and her features really kind of demonstrate that, because just that year she had 2 David Guetta singles, a Rick Ross feature, rather her featuring on a Rick Ross song, her featuring on Drake's Take Care, which again, I shouldn't say again, I'm not sure if I've stated, but in the music sphere, people like to regard Take Care as Drake's best album. I'll debate that at a future date, but again, that's a topic for a completely different date, completely different podcast. But at the time, that was Drake's biggest project, his like flagship project, and she was on that, obviously. Young Money co-sign. And then 2011 was also the year of Dance Ass, if you guys remember. If y'all remember Dance Ass, I know you guys remember Dance Ass, because that song still kind of, it sounds dated as shit, but it definitely rings off still in 2020. But yeah, definitely big features that really held their value for a while, I would say, or at least in my opinion, they held their value. And she didn't, again, no real projects in 2011, but just a pretty big feature year. Really showed off her ability to jump on or to work with other artists on their own song and really perform, which is a good trait, especially like an insanely good trait, especially for like a new artist, like she was at this time. Jumping into 2011, it was more of an album year for her, so she had a couple of features. She was on a song with DJ Khaled, B.O.B., Alicia Keys. That Alicia Keys one was the Girl on Fire remix, if I'm remembering correctly. And then her song with Justin Bieber, which in hindsight, that song is not good. That song's not good at all. But knowing where she is now and what that feature did for her probably at that time, it is a smart ass move, because Justin Bieber was Justin Bieber was Justin Bieber at this time. Like, before all the controversy, before he started making, I mean, you can debate on whether or not he ever made bad music, but when he was, this is around the peak of his popularity, right? If not slightly still climbing. Nicki Minaj jumping on a Justin Bieber song is perfect for Nicki Minaj, because it just, busted right through the roof of her audience. You know what I mean? Like, it just, the Justin Bieber audience and Nicki Minaj audience before this point probably did not cross paths, like, at all, if barely. I'm sure they did cross. There was some crossover a little bit, but up to this point, Nicki Minaj was probably not rapping to the same ears that Justin Bieber was singing to. So this feature definitely helped up and helped grow her audience. I can't even imagine what the numbers looked like after that feature. But despite the song being bad, completely understand why she did it. And this is also a relatively important point, because it's probably the start of where the numbers started to come into play for her, and where her audience started to grow to the point where now she's not just playing with like a select group of listeners, like a dedicated fan base, where someone like who can I give a good example of now, like someone like a Vince Staples or a JID, or I don't want to say J. Cole because he's too big, but somebody who has like not a huge fan base, but a very dedicated fan base. I think she was missing that, or rather, I think she had that dedicated fan base, but I think pulling in a completely separate fan base kind of didn't dilute it, but kind of diluted the taste in music that she would be kind of delivering content to, or rather, like, she wasn't, like, if you have a dedicated fan base and your dedicated fan base is like really the only people listening to music, you don't have to like change your music. You don't have to change your sound that much, right? Because you don't have to appeal to as many people or appeal to so many different sounds. But now with a bigger fan base, which I'm just kind of speculating how big that Justin Bieber fan base is, or how much she got from that Justin Bieber fan base. But I feel like a couple years after this was like the start of the decline in her quality of music, because she just had to appeal to so many different people. But going off of that same year, 2012, was when Pink Friday Roman Reloaded came out. And don't let the title confuse you. Honestly, you almost definitely forgot about this fucking album, because it wasn't anything special. In terms of like actual quality, wasn't anything crazy, but or let me say, don't let the title confuse you. It is not like last week I talked about how, like, for Lady Gaga, for example, for Lady Gaga, there was her first album was The Fame, and then she released The Fame Monster, which was essentially just like 5 add-on songs. Like, this is completely different. Like, Pink Friday, Roman Reloaded, despite the name having Pink Friday, it's like a completely different album. I don't think they share any songs, but this album, you almost definitely forgot about this album because, I mean, you know, I listen to a good amount of music. Not saying that Nicki Minaj is my favorite and that I'm like constantly listening to Nicki Minaj music, but I would guarantee the vast majority of people who listen to music fairly regularly completely forgot that this album existed completely. Which is interesting, but also not interesting, because this is, in some places, her most creative project. She tries a lot of different sounds and styles. She really goes heavy into dance music, and I'm blaming David Guetta 100% on that motherfucker, because every day, I swear to God, you could not jump in the car and drive to the supermarket and not hear the David Guetta and Nicki Minaj, at least one of those songs on the radio on your way there, on your way back. Like, it was impossible. That shit played forever. And I don't blame her for going into dance. I think she could have made pretty good dance music. Like Azalea Banks, but way less crazy than Azalea Banks. But, you know, she tried with different sounds, which is why I don't call this album bad. I just call it forgettable, because I think this was her just trying to explore, like, all right, what can I do in these other lanes that I don't necessarily think I'll go into, but I just want to try it. And a lot of the sounds and the themes were found on Pink Friday, her first album, but, like, you know, with the dial turned up to 10 on them. So, like there were, like, maybe 1 or 2 quote-unquote dance songs on Pink Friday, but, like, here it's like, you know, like, this shit is this is made for the club, and you will find it in the club. And that goes along with some other songs, but, like, it was the dial turned up to 10, so what happened is that created a lot of misses and a very, 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 very few hits. Yeah, like, some songs that you'll recognize off this, which you're like, oh, that's what album this song is on. I mean, Starships, which, side note, she has, I think it was maybe last year, she did like a little interview or something, and she said that Starships is her least favorite song that she's ever made, and I completely agree. That song is horrible. In terms of just, like, singles that got super popular and are, like, will be forever attached to her name as, like, a song that was very popular that she made, Starships is by far the worst. And it's, you know, it's a dance song. It's just, like, it's just not good at all. I don't care how many I don't care where you play it. It's just not good. Bees in the Trap is also a relatively notable one, and which is weird because I was listening to it again recently, and for the sake of this podcast only, and it was a lot rappier than I remember it being for some reason. I remember the beat being, like, really grimy and stuff, like, and really, like, not scary, but like the beat is very, like, it's hollow, but it's very, like, hard. And I forgot that she, like, raps on this song. Like, she kind of goes in, which is interesting because Bees in the Trap is one of the flagship songs of this album. But, you know, looking back, I was kind of surprised that a song that was this rappy from Nicki Minaj really kind of popped off. Because, I mean, if you look at the songs that really popped off on Pink Friday, they were all poppy songs. Like, you know, Super Bass is a really poppy rap song. All the others are really poppy. It's very interesting that Bees in the Trap is probably one of the better songs on the album, or at least one of the more recognizable songs on the album, but it's very rappy, which is interesting. And then there's also Va Va Voom, which is, again, very poppy, which is, you know, makes sense why that song got played very much. But just to really, you know, accentuate how forgettable this album is, there's one song on this album that has Drake, who is now in his prime, or at least on a hot streak, and it has Nas on it and Jeezy, who's, you know, if you know who Jeezy is, whatever. If you don't know who Jeezy is, He's a rapper. Obviously not nearly to the highest mainstream regard as, or at least at this point, as Drake. And I mean, Nas has, hip hop recognition. Old hip hop recognition. But there's a song with all three of them on it, and it didn't, like, I don't think I ever heard that song before I listened to this album again. I was listening to it, I'm like, I feel like there would be a part where I was like, all right, I feel like I heard this before, and I was like, you know what, nah, I don't think so. It's just forgettable. Like, this album in general is just super forgettable, and the way it was made, I don't really hold it against it. It's just, it's just forgettable. It's not bad, it's just forgettable. Moving on to 2014, I'm skipping 2 years because she didn't really do anything crazy in those 2 years. She obviously did, like, guest features or whatever, but nothing too notable, especially in the narrative that I'm painting here. Nothing worth talking about. But in 2014, I'm calling this her superstar year. So before I mentioned that in 2012 she was in star mode, I think that 2014 she hit, like, superstar mode, because the music that she made, everything that she did in 2014 was huge. Like, was just huge. It was massive. For example, Bang Bang with Jessie J and Ariana Grande was an insanely successful pop song, especially with three artists that weren't necessarily that you wouldn't really pit together. I don't want to say pit together, but put together in the same place for the same song. Ariana Grande was her popularity. I assume at this time I'll do an Ariana Grande video eventually, or podcast eventually. Excuse me. Definitely not a hate train, but just I'll save the Ariana Grande podcast for later. But I'm pretty sure at this point in 2014 she was on the increase. She had obviously, I don't think she was still with Nickelodeon at this point. I'm pretty sure she was really getting deep into her music career, so I think she was really jumping in popularity. So Ariana Grande on this, Jessie J was already an established pop star at this point, and Nicki Minaj obviously jumping on this, on what would have been a massive pop song without her, just made it even bigger, and it made her name bigger. Again, like, her moves to play the different audiences are very apparent, and I think they're a big fault. I think they're a big part in why her music isn't nearly as good now. So again, keep that in mind. Also this year was a little song called Anaconda, which everybody knows about, and everybody has seen the music video. I really meant to look up the how many views that shit has on YouTube, and I'm looking up now because I forgot. That song on YouTube, that music video on YouTube right now came out 5 years ago. 5 and some change years ago. That song has 942 million views. Holy shit. Alright, hold up. How many, what's the like to dislike? That's what I really want to see. This song has 5 million likes on it to 1.6 million dislikes. Who dislikes? Oh, okay, now I know who dislikes this shit. But, and that's funny, the first... sorry, quick side little thing, but the first comment on here is the Needle Drop, who I mentioned before, and his comment is, I came, I saw, I came, which is hilarious. That comment is 33,000 likes on it. Anyway, but that song was massive. And again, it goes towards my narrative that this was her superstar year. This song is still massive. You can put this song on anywhere, and honestly, if you're my age, you're not familiar with, like, the Sir Mix-a-Lot song that is, that it's based off of, that it's sampling. But you put this song on, everybody can sing to this song, man. Everybody can sing to this damn song. It's huge. And actually, I want to say that it was, so it peaked at number 2 on Billboard. I'm pretty sure it was her first song to go that high, or it was her highest charting song ever. Just to put into perspective of how big this song was. I'm pretty sure, I don't even know how close she got before this. She might have gotten to, like, I feel like I read she got to, like, 14th or 18th before this. I think that was the closest she got to number 1. But just to put into perspective, and how big this song was. And 2014 was not a scrub year for songs. If you guys remember, like, 2014, like, I might do a year by year breakdown of like songs at some point. But 2014 was a really huge year for songs, really huge year for music. 2014 and 2016 were huge for music, and so like she wasn't going up against scrubs. Like she was like this song performed with some of the best songs or some of the most, I'll say viral songs that come out in years, and yeah, so that song was huge. And then she also had the song Only, which would eventually be found on the Pinkprint, which was, I guess, semi-memed. I guess I said here that it was memed. I was just trying to think back to, like, you heard, like, I'm pretty sure the song was, you could say that this song was pretty heavily memed. But, it made waves. It had Chris Brown on it, Lil Wayne, and Drake. So that's a very, very foolproof lineup. And actually, okay, so I'm going to say that's a very foolproof lineup. Like, you cannot mess up with that lineup. So keep that exact statement in mind, because we'll get back to that later. And then also in 2014, obviously she came out with the Pinkprint. And the Pinkprint, again, due to her, what I'm calling her superstar status at this point, was highly anticipated. Like, insanely anticipated. Probably one of the more anticipated albums that come out that year. Or that would come out that year. There were features up and down this motherfucker. Like, a lot of features. I didn't write them all down because none of them, it's like the same features, but they were like all everywhere. And Meek Mill was on this bitch twice. And I'm not going to talk very much about Meek Mill and Nicki Minaj's relationship on this episode of the podcast, but it's worth noting that they were dating at this time. And, that's just why he's on this bitch twice. But what I realized about this album initially, at least subconsciously I noticed it initially, and then listening back on it now, this album, where I think it's a relatively good album. It has some really good songs on it. But where I think it really kind of loses its appeal to me from listening is the fact that it kind of replaces the focus on like a fun, like bubbly rap album that you could find on Pinkprint, and then in like bursts on Roman Reloaded. It replaces that focus with like I would say I called it an interesting mix of rapping showcases, just like, hey, like, I called myself the best rapper in the world, let me prove it, like that kind of showcase. And then like slow jams, which I don't blame her for. She's still signed to a label. The label needs to make money, and I call them slow jams just to kind of, that's like an umbrella phrase. But yes, the slow jams were there were a lot of them, and I think like the first like 2 or 3 songs I think were slow jams, which isn't bad. Actually, I think the first 4 songs are slow jams, and then like the 5th one has Beyonce on it, which is notable. But yeah, like they were very like easily accessible songs. Like they weren't. It's weird because it's like me listening. This album almost has just like it has 2 versions to it. It's like a bipolar album. Like it's either like, let me rap your fucking head off, and then like let me just like sing you to bed. It sounds weird, but as an album, it just didn't have personally what I wanted from Nicki Minaj, which is why I called this album just decent, or like pretty okay, because it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just like, it's not exactly what I wanted. And there are songs that I wanted on here. There are songs I love in the song. I like All Things Go. Ooh, my God, sweet Jesus, I need more water. But I like songs like All Things Go, which is the intro. I really like, I actually kind of got back into Get On Your Knees, which is Nicki Minaj and Ariana Grande, but I got back into that song almost purely based on Ariana Grande. I obviously like Only. That song is fun. It holds up. I love Favorite, which is her and Jeremiah. Training Them Girls, which is Lunch Money Lewis on it. Damn, I actually kind of forgot about that. Anaconda's on here, which is fine. I love Pills and Potions. And then, oh God, there's one more that I like Truffle Butter, which has Drake and Lil Wayne. Which, how do you lose, dude? Like, that's 2 songs on here with both Drake and Lil Wayne. Damn. Alright, again, keep that in mind. That song was good, and I think that song played like pretty well for a while. Keep in mind, Nicki Minaj, Drake, and Lil Wayne, keep that trio in mind. They didn't they didn't fall off yet. And yeah, so to me, this album is like the first and like I said marquee example of her shift in musical focus to not only being regarded as the best female rapper ever, but also to take that title very seriously. Like she, like at this point, she's a superstar. She's a superstar rapper. Very few rappers make it to superstardom, like very few. And she was the only female rapper to make it to superstardom at this point. And if you're gonna say as a superstar rapper that I am the best female rapper in the world, like ever, then you gotta prove that. You know what I mean? Like you gotta back that up. And I think she took that way, way, way too seriously. Not yet, not on this album, but she does. You can see hints of it again. Like there's some very rappy rap songs on here that are just like, oh, like she's fucking going in. Like she's taking this shit seriously, which isn't bad by any means. Take your art seriously, but I'll get to this later. I'll extrapolate on this later. I think she's taking the wrong thing seriously, or she's kind of twisting. She has this warped view of what's actually important with her music, and then focusing on those things instead of the good things. But I'll get to that. So that was 2014, and then again, we're going to skip a couple years to 2017. So I have after like an array of decent / okay features. Some features in that time, like Rake It Up, which is Yo Gotti's song, and then some other shit that I don't really feel like talking about. We come to the first red flag, and now, after this brief history lesson, I am finally on her ass, man. This is where I'm going to have some fun. So, if Pinkprint were the plateau, right, like in her 4 albums, like if Pink Friday was a steep incline, if we're imagining a mountain, right? Pinkprint is, to me, a steep incline in quality, right? And then Roman Reloaded was, like, the first decline to / like, there's, like, a little rut in the road, like a little dip, but it kind of was an increase. But it was very short, so you didn't really notice it that much. And if I'm gonna say in this analogy that the Pinkprint was, like, the plateau, it's a very slight incline, I'm gonna call it more of a plateau at this point, then this three piece, I'm gonna call it a 3-piece, so like 3 singles in a pack, a 3-pack. This was the first start of the decline. Like this was like the dip. This is like no guardrail. Like there's cloud coverage, so you don't actually see like it's foggy out. You don't actually see the decline. This is it. This is it right here. Yeah. Okay. So these 3 songs, interestingly enough, I actually kind of forgot it worked like this. But 2 songs came out on March 9th, and then the third came out on the 10th. So in 2017. So March 9th. Regret in Your Tears and Change It featuring Lil Wayne came out. And I know for a fact none of you guys remember these fucking songs. I know for a fact none of you guys remember this song. I don't think anybody remembers these songs. I don't think Nicki Minaj remembers that she put these songs out, honest to God. They might, because they were horribly received. They're not good songs in the slightest bit. I mean, I have my opinions on Lil Wayne as, the years go on. But, like, that Wayne feature didn't do shit for that song. Changed It. It didn't do shit for that song. It didn't do anything. Those songs made no waves, didn't do anything. So I guess I don't know if this was her plan or she saw the reception off rip and was like, oh shit, I need to bring out the big guns, right? So that was the 9th. So now the 10th, next day, she releases the song called No Frauds, which featured Drake and Lil Wayne. And again, please tell me anybody, tell me one lyric from this song. A single one. Give me like I don't want to say give me a word, but give me like 3 words in a row that appear on this song in order. I'm telling you can't. I'm telling you can't. Because this song didn't do shit either. It didn't do fucking anything. Remember how I was saying, like, Nicki Minaj featuring Drake and Lil Wayne, you couldn't miss? How do you miss with this lineup? And it wasn't like, if you're at a shooting range and you like, hit above the shoulder, like not that kind of miss. Like at least she hit the paper still. Like no, she shot that shit out the damn range. Like just completely missed the paper and everything. Like it's completely unremarkable of a song, and it's even stranger because this song, along with kind of Changed in a way the day before, really started to fuel the mainstream beef between her and Remy Ma, another female rapper, which again was insane, was just forgotten almost damn immediately. Like the beef, and I'll get into this later, the beef had way more of an impact than the song did. Like, that song is, that three pack was horrible, and it is insanely forgettable. It was so horrible that I'm pretty sure that when it came out, that was her rollout, that was her album rollout. Like, those were the singles that she was going with. Like, she's like, all right, like album's coming out this year, let me just, and I think she said this, I think she actually said this on an interview with like Beats One, I think, or something like that. She heard the songs, the reception was horrible, like no one took these songs well. So she like went away, like she like went like super on the ground, like she, cut off communication with people and like her manager and shit and family or whatever, and just like completely rethought her musical strategy. And I don't blame her for doing that, because that 3-pack really showed how out of touch she was with her fan base at this point. Because at this point she was just confused. If you listen to all 3 of these songs, I mean, they all sound pretty different, but like they're all like trying to attend to different people. Like the Your Tears one is a slow song, which was definitely made for the masses. The Change It song was, I guess, made for like the middle, like the in-betweeners. And then like the No Frauds was like a rap song. Like it was like a rappy rap song. Like it was made for like the rap people that followed her. And they were all bad. So she just didn't know who she was attending to, or who she should be attending to, and how to like properly attend to them. Like she just had zero clue. Also in 2017, oh god, like also Motorsport was in here, and if you follow like music news, like that whole thing like spurred like fueled more beef with Cardi B, or I should say really doused the flames in gasoline. Like it just grew the flame of that beef, which was manufactured by the fans in the first place, but it really just like grew the flames on that beef, which created a lot of press, which again was focused on the beef more than the song. And the song was not great either, but I'll save that for another day. Actually, I won't save that for another day. That song is insanely forgettable as well. So yeah, so like I said before, in 2018 she kind of took a break, even though she kind of put out a notable feature in there, and then came back with another 2-pack. And actually, I remember sitting in class, in movie watching class at Penn State, and I remember the song came out, and I was in a big ass theater. Obviously the lights were dim, so I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna listen to these songs. And the 2-pack had 2 songs, obviously. First one called Chun Li, and the second one called Barbie Tings. I was not a big fan of Barbie Tings. It wasn't bad. It was definitely better than the 3-packs she released before. And again, new Nicki Minaj, like the standards were high. Like people were anticipating this. Like the anticipation was high. So like if it was bad, it would have sounded really bad. So it sounded fine. And Chun Li, which I to this day still like a lot. I think the bounce is really fun, and I think it's a really just good Nicki Minaj song in general. It's not anything complex. I think it's pretty basic in terms of like rapping technique and like quality and all that stuff. But I think it's fun, and I enjoy it a lot. It's really enjoyable. But yeah, and later in 2018, the Queen album released in November, and then also she had an Apple Music radio show, which excuse me, oh Lord. And then her Apple Music radio show, which is important to note that the only reason I talk about it now is because, or rather the only reason I bring it up is because it was for like the relatively short time that it ran, it was essentially just like a gossip show where she just like, it was just like, I don't know how to describe it. It was just like, it was a gossip show. Like she would talk about, like she would have like, vetted questions from whatever guest, quote unquote guest she had coming in, which are basically her friends that would talk to her about like her music that she's making, and like industry people who would just be like, like I heard you had like, what was your, thought process making the new album, and blah, blah, blah. Just like a bunch of bullshit. And then just like, which I shouldn't say it's bullshit, because that stuff is kind of interesting, but it was like, that stuff was like veiled by like this whole tone where just like, she like called out a lot of people on it, and she just like started a lot of just like, she just stirred up a lot of just like press of like rumors and just all this shit that didn't have anything to do with music, just like her own relationships to other artists that just like, it was just useless and it was just terrible. But, and I'm sorry for running so long, but obviously this, I have a lot to say about this. But we're going to break into Queen and Queen, the album. The album's called Queen. Never in my life have I had actually, I might have to think about it. But I was going to say, never in my life have I heard an album with a title that was so fucking misleading. Queen, the album, is... Oh, God, where do I start with this fucking just abysmal album? Okay, this album, I'm going to start off light. This album is literally an album full of filler. It's literally a compilation of filler. Somehow, every song on here does not belong. It's like... So, filler on an album is like, you listen to the song, you're like, I don't need to hear this song. It's bad per se. Like, it's like, like you instantly like turn the shit off, right? Like, it's like, oh my God, this sounds terrible. Like, it's not that. Like, it's not filler. To me, filler means like this song is just useless. Like, it doesn't serve the album. It's not like anything special. It's just like extra. It's just like noise. It's just an extra 3.5 minutes to like pad up the streaming and like pad up the runtime of the album. This album Queen is literally full of it. Like, this album has 20 songs on it, and I would venture to say at least 15 of the songs are filler. 15. That means if you took out every song that I would say is filler, you would have 5 songs, which is an EP. Which is a short EP. I guess it's a normally length EP, but it's just all filler. I made sure, like, I do not like this album in the slightest bit. So I made sure that I listened to, and I tweeted about it, I made sure that I listened to every single song on here just to make sure that I wasn't hating for no reason. And oh my God, I was so bored. Why am I so bored listening to someone who calls herself the queen of rap in my ear? Why am I so bored? The entire hour and 10 minutes, with very few exceptions, which I'll talk about, I was just bored out of my goddamn mind. And this album, I mean, it went double platinum at some point because Nicki Minaj is Nicki Minaj. But I remember, like, the first week's numbers were horrible. Like, for someone of her stature and her, like, status, like, Nicki Minaj should not be making albums like this. Like, no one of her caliber should ever make an album like this. Like, this is the equivalent of, I don't even know which Drake album to really equal this to, whether it's Scorpion or More Life. I mean, they're both of those things are just not great for different reasons, but like, it's just, nobody this good at a thing should be this bad at making a thing. You know what I mean? Like Picasso should never make a bad painting, ever. I'm sure he did, but not like this bad. Or just, I don't even want to say bad, because a lot of the songs that I would say are filler on this album aren't bad. They're just useless. Like, you can go your whole life without hearing any of these songs, as I'm sure most of you guys have, and you'll be perfectly fine. You're not missing a damn thing. A damn thing. Like, this album could literally not exist, and she would have a better reputation because of it. Easily. Like this is like, oh God, what is that Eminem album that I'm forgetting because it was so bad that came out a couple years ago with like all the political shit on it? Like, it's like, no, I don't want to say that, because that album was actually bad. Like, that album like sounded bad. So I take that back. I'm not going to do that to Nicki Minaj, but this album's just useless. It serves no purpose. It's bad. Okay, so back to the actual notes. I went way off script there. But the features on here she has some heavy hitter features on here. I mean, like, she has Eminem on here. She has Lil Wayne, obviously. She has Ariana Grande. She has The Weeknd on here. She has Sway Lee, who is popping off I guess at that time. I mean, when did Unforgettable come out? That's probably when Sway Lee. Well, rather, I don't want to just put on Unforgettable. When did Shrem Life come out? Like 2014, I think. Miss Sway Lee, big name. Future, obviously a huge name. And then Lil Wayne again, and then Foxy Brown. Like there were very few features, especially compared to the Pinkprint, but like they were pretty big names, and they didn't do shit for this album. I love Ariana Grande. I cannot tell you what that song "Bed" is about. I can't tell you what it sounds like. I've never heard it in my. I might have heard it a couple times. Lil Wayne didn't do anything special. Eminem didn't do anything special. The only person that carried their weight was The Weeknd, in my opinion, on Thought I Knew You, which is one of the only songs I actually kind of like on this album. There are like 2 songs I actually like on this album. It's Thought I Knew You, well, excluding Chun-Li. Thought I Knew You, I guess Chun-Li, and then Hard White are the only songs I actually like and would listen to. And then there's one word I like but I wouldn't listen to, but I'll get into that in a second. Yeah, like this is... I just don't know what this album is. Like, I feel like I know what this album is, but I don't know actually what this album is. Like, I feel like this is just like an attempt, like a really bad attempt to really get like her appeal back. And like me saying like I don't know if that's true because it's just not good. Like, there's just nothing notable on it. I don't remember like talking about this album makes me so mad. Because I want to like her so much, and I want to like every album or every piece of music she wants so bad. Because I like her. I like her a lot. Or rather, I liked her a lot. She had so much personal potential for me as a listener that it just frustrates me when I hear this kind of stuff. And it's just not even close to the bar. Like, I can have a pretty... Like, I can have a high bar. I can have a high standard for the artists I like. And then I can have, like, a realistic standard. Like, I know that every artist is not going to make my favorite song day in and day out. But I can at least have a pretty, you know, I can have a pretty accurate take and be like, all right, they can probably make a song of this quality. Like, I can do that. This just completely misses that in every way, shape, and form. Just every way, shape, and form. It's just undersold so hard. And again, I want to reiterate, the album as a whole isn't horrible, but to me, it's definitely the summation of the pressure to retain, like, the prestige, which is really just self-given, especially at this point, of being the best female rapper out there. Which, also, I don't want to go on another mini tangent, but at this point, there's so many really amazing female rappers out there, not even in terms of just, like just actual rapping technicality or just like making good songs like they can play on the radio, but there's so many just amazing female rappers out there, and I mean just rappers in general. But if she's kind of rode this wave of calling herself the best female rapper ever, and they're like, granted they're not nearly as popular. I'm not even going to talk about Doja Cat, Cardi, and Meg for a little bit, but like they're just better ones in some aspects. So that whole, especially now, so it's like that whole, especially in 2018, it's like at that point, she's working like overtime to prove that, and also simultaneously definitely working towards doing numbers, because at this point, and if you follow Nicki Minaj on socials, I don't think she does it that much anymore, I don't follow her on socials, but I did, and for a while, she was super, super, super into like the awards and like saying like, hey, I'm the best female rapper, I won all these Grammys, and like I won all these awards and all these, MTV Music Awards and all the fuck and whatever. I'm platinum X amount of times and blah, blah, blah. I sold this many albums, whatever. Like, I hate that. I think that shit is super corny. And, like, and you can tell, like, that was her focus for this, was just to, like, just run the numbers up. And it just, I mean, if you want to run the numbers up, that's fine. But, like, make music that can match the numbers. Because at this point, the numbers are just attached to your name, not the music. Like, especially in this case. Like, an album like this should never go double platinum. If any other artist made this album, it would not be double platinum right now. Not even close. It might be platinum, maybe, if, like, anyone notable made this album. But anybody who... You could attach any other name to this album, I think, and make songs of this quality. And I'm excluding superstars. But that's kind of my point, because she's a superstar. The numbers are attached to her name, not the music, which is infuriating. So infuriating. If you're a superstar, you should continue. You should at least make an attempt to keep making superstar music. And just this is not that. Not even close. This is barely star music. This is barely, debatably star music, star level music. Not even close to superstar music. But again, that's my own opinion. And again, here on this podcast, my opinion is fact. So we're gonna roll with it. Like most of the I kind of attacked this out of order that I have in my notes, but like the songs in this album are just like so fucking lazy. They're just so goddamn lazy, man. And you can tell, because as you're listening to it, it just turns into white noise. Like every song, it's just so poorly made. Or just it's just lazily made. Like the writing is not good, like the beats aren't good. The delivery, like she sounds like in the rap world, like people like to say like rappers sound hungry or like hungry. But what that all means is that like they sound like they're rapping with a purpose, right? And there are some instances of her hunger here, but the problem is you can't connect or appreciate the sound of the hunger, because you know that the purpose for the hunger is that she just wants fucking numbers. She's not, at this point, I don't think she's for the art of rap, which is infuriating, because I think she was a massive contributor to it at the beginning, and I just don't think she's with the art of rapping anymore. And you know, it's with an album like this, it's how can you debate me on it? You know what I mean? The most entertaining part of this album by far is one song. Maybe if you heard this album already, you might know what I'm talking about. And it's called Barbie Dreams, which is a Biggie flip, like the Notorious B.I.G. It's a flip of one of his songs, which I should have wrote the song down, but I forgot it. And the song itself, if you haven't listened to it, listen to it, because it's fun. Like, it's fun. And it serves as like this sort of environment to take like lighthearted jabs at like a bunch of like, you know, notable musicians like Meek, Drake, DJ Khaled, Future, I think. There's like a bunch of people. Like every other line is like a joke at another rapper, right, or artist. And to this day, it is the only song on this album where I actually felt like she legit had pure fun making this song. Like there was no, you could argue that she made this song for clicks, but the jokes are too funny. Like she could have bullshitted her way through this. I mean, some of the jokes are kind of low-hanging fruit, but some of them are like funny, like genuinely funny. Like just listen to this song. I mean, it's funny. Like it's like a 3-minute comedy routine with a beat behind it, and it rhymes. And again, it's the only song on this album, and the only song that I've heard from her in a while where it sounded like she actually had fun making it. Like she had fun making music. What a wild concept it is for an artist to like have fun making songs. And that goes into, and this is going to be essentially the end of like, it's going to be like the capstone and just like the summation of my issues with Nicki Minaj here. That goes easily into my biggest issue with Nicki Minaj, or rather the music she makes now, is that right now all the songs that she makes, all the verses that she puts out, for the most part, it sounds like she's treating her music like a 9-to-5, like a minimum wage job. Like obviously you don't, you know, if you work a minimum wage job, you don't, of course I'm making assumptions here, but you know, you don't love that job. You don't necessarily love going into work every day to do it. But you do it because you have to. You do it because, you know, XYZ reasons. And, you know, that's how she's treating her music now. She's doing it for very direct purposes that aren't about the music and more about the business of music, if that makes sense. Like all these songs sound like they're made for sales. They're made for retaining notability because she has to, right? Not because she wants to. Like, I guess I can skip right here. Like, part of her promo now, I guess, is her just like fake retiring from music. I hate it when people do that. Not that people do that a lot, but like, I remember like a few months ago, maybe it was just, close to a year ago, like I remember her tweeting out like, something to the effect of, I'm retiring from music, and then she just dipped. And like, I read that, I'm like, well, no the fuck you aren't. Because you're Nicki Minaj, you're just not gonna retire from music. Like, I shouldn't say nobody, but I really hope that the vast majority of people who read that tweet were also like, yeah, no, you're not no, you're not retiring. Like, no, of course not. Of course you're not. But like, if she were to retire, or if she actually wanted to retire, I don't blame her. If she actually wanted to. I know she isn't at this point, because I know what her purpose is with making music, and I know that her purpose is not fulfilled yet. She still doesn't have all the awards that she wants. She still doesn't have all the notoriety that she wants. Like, her notoriety is still getting tested to this day. I know for a fact that's the only reason she still makes music. Or again, I don't know for a fact, but it's my opinion, and again, my opinion here is fact. So I know for a fact that that's the only reason she still makes music, is because she doesn't inherently want to. She just wants everything that comes with making music, even though she's not making music that qualifies her for some of those things. It's just annoying, and it's like a cycle for, as a listener like me, or as like, I'll talk specifically for me, it's infuriating, because it just creates bad product. It just creates bad content constantly, and then now she's trapped making bad content, unless the listener or the fans hold her accountable. Oh God, she came, to me, she came into the scene being like this fun, energetic, creative artist, and who really just became one of the most prestigious rappers by accident. Honestly, that's how listening through and like experiencing her growth in music as a consumer, that's what it seems like to me. Like, she came in, she was obviously a great rapper, right? She was obviously a great rapper, but she kind of fell into this role where now she's like the poster child for being like the greatest rapper of all time, or the greatest female rapper ever, right? Which kind of took precedence over being like interesting or actually making good fucking music. Like, wanting to make good fucking music. Like, and I'm gonna gas Kanye here, because I never don't gas Kanye, but say what you will about him and about his music, he only makes music he wants to make, no matter how people are gonna take it. Which is one reason why I love him, and one reason why I hate the music that she makes now. Again, I don't want to say that I hate her, but why I hate her art now, or her approach to art, because I know it's not music that she would make if she just had free reign. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people always ask you, what would you do if money wasn't a thing? Like, what job would you have if you didn't have to worry about money? Like, what music would Nicki Minaj make if she didn't have to worry about awards, or she didn't want to worry about awards or money and all that shit? She would make 4 Pink Fridays in a row. Personally, I strongly believe that. But we're never getting it. It is what it is. I think am I thinking of another artist? I feel like she just kind of dropped like a hint that she would be releasing quote unquote Pink Friday 2. That's her next album, whatever that means. Listen, I talked about Kanye, or about people who heard Kanye's new album saying that it has like Yeezus sounds, and my hopes are up from that. So if she says Pink Friday, her next album's gonna be like Pink Friday 2, my hopes are up, but not too high up, because I'm just gonna get them shattered unless she drastically changes her approach to making music. But like everything about how she approaches this is horrible. The promo is horrible, just like really shallow promo stunts, like announcing retirement. I think that is insanely shallow. She starts just like irrelevant beefs, or just like unnecessary beefs with just artists, and really only female artists, which annoys me, because come on, like, y'all can work together and just make good music, or at least make entertaining music. I know you guys can do it. Just just stop fighting with each other, please. I just want good music, and you guys are stifling it with all this shit. I said, like people like I mentioned, Remy and Cardi B. Yeah, I mentioned the fake retirements. And like, to me, the best promo is to just release singles that are good. What a crazy concept to release, instead of doing all these stupid industry tricks of just, playing the numbers where you can get like all these, get realistically artificial hype around an album. Why don't you just release a song that is good? That way people would be excited, be like, oh, this song is good. Hopefully the album sounds as good. And then the album sounds good, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm gonna listen to this album over and over and over again. Like, what a fucking concept. What a fucking concept it is to actually use good singles as promo for an album, instead of doing all these just cheap ass tricks that she falls into. Speaking of other artists right now that get compared to, or that at least I subconsciously compare to Nicki Minaj, I think that each one right now, they're not even close to I don't think any of them, maybe a few come close to the potential that Nicki Minaj has in terms of artistry. But in a lot of Nicki Minaj is no stranger to saying, yeah, these bitches my sons. I think that's like a legit line from one of her songs. But they are. But the thing about it is that every artist that I would compare her to, or that I would compare to Nicki Minaj, takes one part of what makes Nicki Minaj as an artist great, focuses on that, and then just surpasses Nicki Minaj in that department. Granted, they're not the whole package that Nicki Minaj has the potential to be, but they each found their lane. No, very briefly talk about it. They each found their lane. They honed. I hate the word honed, but they found the skill. They found what they're good at, and they only do that. And I'm fine with an artist experimenting, but I'm also more fine with an artist knowing what makes them good and focusing on that. Right? So like someone like Cardi B, who really focuses on this like ratchet, I put some, like I call it ratchet but rich energy, which is just like, like I came from the streets, like I'm not like one of these industry people that's just fake and all that. Like, I tell how it is, whatever, all that, whatever shit. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But also she's like, now I got money now, so like, fuck yeah, I'm buying cars, I'm buying houses, all this shit. Like, that is very much Cardi B's lane, and I think Cardi B is better in that lane than Nicki Minaj is now. In specifically that lane. I think Meg Thee Stallion, who I love, brings to her, in her phrasing, hot girl energy, which is, like sexy music, music about sex, just like very like sexual, hot girl music. I think Megan Thee Stallion accentuates on this lane better than Nicki Minaj is now. Drastically, well, I shouldn't say drastically better. Like, no, I'm gonna say drastically better because that's her thing, like that's Meg Thee Stallion's thing. So I mean, it's comparing apples to oranges, which in this stance, but still, you can compare apples to oranges, so I'm going to. And then someone like Doja Cat, who is my favorite female quote-unquote rapper right now, because she took the fun part of Nicki Minaj's character. She doesn't take herself seriously at all, Doja Cat, at all, in the slightest bit. In her personality, in her interviews, in her music, anything. She doesn't take herself very seriously at all, and I love that. Because she still makes good music. It's fine to make good music, know you make good music, but still have enough self-awareness where you're like, alright, well, I can still have fun with this, and I can still not take myself very seriously if I don't have to. You know what I mean? I think Doja Cat is the perfect example of how of how an artist can make good music, or at least can make fun music, make enjoyable music, without taking themselves seriously. Without trying too hard, I should say. I think Doja Cat's a perfect example of that. And again, I think she does that better than Nicki Minaj. I haven't heard Nicki Minaj have fun in so long, and it pisses me off. I just want Nicki Minaj to have fun, man. I just want Nicki Minaj to have fun so then I can have fun listening to her. That's all I want. And I mean, I can't imagine it being easy to be an artist of her status, having to appeal to so many demographics, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. The best musicians are musicians that make music for them, and then just let the fans come in if they like it. If they like it, if they don't, they don't. To me, that's what the best artists in the world do, and I think she kind of lost track of that, which makes her not the best artist in the world. Funny little fact about Doja Cat in relation to Cardi B is that it is worth noting that Nicki Minaj has been in the mainstream rap game for a full-ass decade. Like a full-ass decade. And she has never had a number one. Granted, it's very hard to get a number one song. Very hard. Again, we talked about earlier that Anaconda went number 2. I think maybe one more song of hers went number 2. I could be wrong on that. But it took a goddamn Doja Cat song. Let me be more specific. It took Doja Cat tricking a bunch of horny people on Twitter to think that she would show them her boobs, that she would post her boobs online to get Nicki Minaj a number one. I think that is probably the funniest stat in music history. Definitely, actually, it's one of the funniest stats, like just pure stats in music history. Definitely in rap history. Like, it took an artist to trick a bunch of hypersexualized men on the internet to get Nicki Minaj, who will say that she's the greatest rapper of all time, who a lot of people will say is the greatest female rapper of all time, to get her a number one song in the country. That's what it takes. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It's funny, but it's absolutely terrible. And then I could talk for another 10 minutes about that Say So remix, but I'm not going to. All I'm going to say is that the original is better. I'm just going to leave it at that. But yeah, in complete closing, again, I've been going on for super long. This is a very long episode. I apologize if you're not used to an episode hearing me talk for this fucking long, but you know, a lot of passion about how upset I am about Nicki Minaj. But in close, I just really want to say that I really believe that Nicki Minaj still has the skill, and very much, especially the skill, and also especially the industry knowledge to be able to create another great piece of music. At least another one. I think she I truly believe she has that in her. But she really needs to get back in touch with the things that made her special as an artist in the first place, which to me are things like, I mean, she has her unique combination of rapping skill, penmanship, because she's a great writer. I mean, whether or not she has ghostwriters is kind of redundant. I think that, or irrelevant. I think she writes. She likes to say she writes all of her stuff. Whether she does or not is whatever. But I'm going to take that claim at face value and say she does. She's a great writer. She still has a very quirky personality. I think she leaned more into that on her first few albums, which worked. All the songs that showed that really weird personality, they all worked. And then obviously, her energy is immaculate. She's a great rapper. She just doesn't make great rap music anymore. It is what it is. On the flip side of that, I think she's won a single bad album, generally understood as a bad album away from losing her superstar status. In terms of just the general regard for her as an artist, I think she's one bad album away from losing superstar status. Honestly, obviously I could be completely wrong. What the hell is the name of her hive? Whatever. Her fan base, her core fan base, her stans are not going to let her not be out of superstar status, but in terms of just the overall music landscape, I think she's one bad. I really do think she's one bad album away from just losing that superstar status. She'll still be highly regarded, just not even close. I think someone will take it from her if she has one more bad one, honestly. And while Cardi is not even close, in skill to Nicki Minaj, not even close. I think that she would be the one to pick up the mantle from her in terms of music that people want to hear. I think that Cardi B might be the closest person to do that. Meg is up there. Doja Cat is up there. The City Girls are up there. Let's see. other female rappers. There are some other names I could throw out there, but I guess they're more singers than rappers. But point is, she's on the clock. She needs to. I really hope that this next album. I hope that every album she makes is good, but I really hope that this next one is good. Because if this next one isn't, then I don't know what she's gonna do, man. Oh God. All right. So with that being said, that is the end of the first installment of the Hate Train, and obviously these are probably going to be longer episodes. I'm not planning on doing them frequently, but if for some reason the idea pops in my mind, I'm like, I'll hate on this guy for a little bit, then I will. But end of the first episode of the Hate Train. Thank you for listening to this segment, and I will finally close on again. It's Thursday, so I will talk very briefly about the songs that I'm looking forward to listening to tonight that are coming out, or the pieces of music that are coming out tonight. And the first one that I'm excited about, just because, it's Drake. I'm looking forward to the Drake and DJ Khaled 2-pack. I am. I wouldn't be, I'm always going to be looking. Who doesn't look forward to a Drake song? Whether it's great or not, you're always looking forward to it. You're always interested, I should say, right? But I don't know, man. Drake might have a new one here. Drake might have a good album here. The way he's talking about it is different. I think he might have a good album on the way. And if these two songs are good, if this 2-pack is good, DJ Khaled can make a good song. His last album was terrible too. I might rip into that. I might rip into DJ Khaled on the next Hate Train. But DJ Khaled and Drake can make a good song. I mean, Drake can make a great song. DJ Khaled can make a great song. They can easily make an amazing song. So I'm looking forward to if at least one of them is amazing, or if at least one of them is great and the other one's mid, I'll take it. If they're both great, this next Drake album is going to be great. Personally, that's my opinion. So I'm looking forward to that. Joey Badass, who I have not investigated that much as a full artist too much. He has a 3-pack coming out tonight, which I'm very interested in, mostly because I am interested. From what I know about Joey Badass, he is very much a very socially conscious rapper, and I'm very interested to see what he has to say, especially with all the things going on in the world right now. In the world right now. So I'm very interested to hear what he has to say, and also because there's a Pusha T feature, and I love Pusha T. I love Pusha T features. I don't think he's ever missed on a feature, personally. Really. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to hear his voice. Jhené Aiko also has a deluxe version of her last album, Chilombo, coming out tonight, which I'm excited for. I got to get my R&B in here with all these rappy rap, especially. I'm probably going to go in this order, honestly. That I'm giving it to you guys. I'm probably going to listen to them in this order. But, after what I'm assuming to be a very rappy rap out 3-pack with Joey Badass, it'll be nice to switch into R&B with Jhené. I think there were 10 songs, 10 additional songs. I think there are 10 additional songs on that, so I'm very excited for that. It's basically a whole nother album. And then there's the Ellie Goulding quote unquote EP that I talked about a couple weeks ago. The weird thing about Spotify is that Spotify likes to give, so I think technically it was an EP, but some of the songs in that EP, which were singles anyway, are going to be part of this album, like a full album, like a actual commercial album that's coming out tonight. And I'm not going to say I'm personally, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Ellie Goulding. I like some of her music. I'm going to comb through that album. I'm probably not going to listen to it super in depth, but I know my girlfriend Sarah is going to be really into that album. She just told me the other day that, Sarah, my girlfriend, just got Spotify the other day. I mean, just got Spotify. Literally, she just got Spotify. This poor girl has been listening to Pandora for I'm told a week ago she just got Spotify. So, so she's been running through just artists and listening to a bunch of different music. And she texted me that, she's a really big fan of Ellie Goulding. I mean, she's always liked Ellie Goulding, but now that she can actually listen to music that you want to listen to without going to a fucking radio station, she said Ellie Goulding's one of her favorite artists. So I know she's gonna be looking forward to that album. So maybe I'll listen to that together. Maybe I'll like it a little bit more. But the album's called Brightest Blue. If you're into Ellie Goulding, if you're into electro pop, Go check that one out. Go check that album out, coming out tonight. And then my college roommate, high school teammate, and favorite person to annoy, Nick Matteo, also recommended to me a group of women called the Aces, who I was not familiar with until he told me about them, I believe last weekend, and they have an album coming out tonight. And the songs that I've heard from them before this album are really good. I like them a lot. I've never heard them before. Matteo, he just said, hey, check out this group. You might like them. I do. I like them a lot. I don't think I actually told him that. But, Matt, if you're listening, I like them a lot. I'm definitely going to check out this album. It's called Under My Influence. And, yeah, so check back on Monday for that podcast to talk about that. Those are a lot of good albums. I'm actually very excited to talk about this. There's going to be a lot to talk about. So yeah, thank you all for listening. I have been Nick Hope. This has been the Bittersweet Taste Podcast, and I will see you guys all on Monday.